Before we get into the video, we'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the winners of the Footy A to Z Patreon tipping. Well done to North, who claimed the tipping league ahead of Cal and Riles. North's prize will be to pick the topic of an upcoming video, so keep an eye out for whatever he decides at the start of next season. After a year off in 2022, we're back with our third rendition of the All-Australian by the Stats team. In 2020, inspired by a lack of transparency in the All-Australian selection that left many fans frustrated, we created a framework for selecting the team based entirely off stats and ran an experiment to see what kind of results that generated. This is where the method's currently at. We start by breaking up the field into a variety of positional subcategories with the aim of mimicking how AFL teams are selected week to week. Next, we select the 5 stats we judge to best represent the attributes of each position. For simplicity, these are limited to what's available on afl.com.au's Stats Pro feature. The rankings of all the players eligible for a position are gathered and converted to points. First place in a stat will give you 1 point, second gives you 2, and so on. A player's final score is calculated by combining their rank in each of their best 4 categories, with their worst score excluded. Like golf, its lowest score wins. Whoever scores the lowest across their best 4 stats is selected in the team. For example, if a player scores first in 4 categories and 40th in their 5th, the 40 is excluded and they'll score 4 points. This allows for more flexibility in selecting the stats, and also reflects that players with different skill sets can excel in the same position. If players are selected in multiple positions, they're placed in the spot where they scored lowest, and the next player in the vacated position fills the gap. Not quite sure what we mean? That's okay. All will become clear as the video goes on. And so, as is totally cool and normal, we start with the forward line. The formula for the forward line was largely unchanged from previous seasons. 2 key forwards anchoring the side, a smaller crumbing forward pocket at their feet, and a half-forward flank capable of linking play. The final spots go to an all-round forward and a resting midfielder with attacking attributes. This year, however, we added the requirement that all forwards must have their goal stat included in their score. Here, the stats selected were goals, goal assists, score involvements, marks inside 50, and contested marks. As expected, there was a clear standout, with Charlie Curnow leading 3 stats to score an almost perfect 5, with Taylor Walker 6 points behind him on 11. In the forward pocket, we wanted a small forward who's both dangerous on the scoreboard and applies pressure inside 50. From goals, score involvements, forward 50 ground ball gets, marks inside 50 and tackles inside 50, Toby Green narrowly claimed the position ahead of Charlie Cameron. A position that had thrown up a few surprises in the past delivered again. From goals, score involvements, marks, effective disposals, and inside 50s, Toby Green showed his dominance to again be selected. Given he'd scored lower in the pocket, however, that remained his selected position, and the second placed Shea Bolton was selected in the team. Interestingly though, if goals wasn't a compulsory category, Brian Myers would have dropped from 97 down to 18 and made the team instead. The other forward pocket would go to the best of the rest. Both key forwards and forwards were eligible, and the stats used were goals, score involvements, marks inside 50, contested marks, and forward 50 ground ball gets. The big boys dominated again, but with Walker and Curnow both already in the side, a breakout season from Kyle Langford saw him make the forward pocket. The centre of the ground would be anchored by a contested midfielder, complemented by 2 more attacking complete midfielders, and a goal-scoring midfielder across half forward. To find a ruck capable of both dominating at stoppages and supporting the team around the ground, we used hit out to advantage percentage, clearances, 1%ers, contested marks, and score involvements. Team English narrowly edged out Rowan Marshall to start on the field. From contested possessions, effective disposals, total clearances, pressure acts and tackles, the clear standout was Matt Rao, whose 2 for contested ball, but 53 for effective disposals, highlighted him as an ultimate contested beast. Here we wanted mids that give a more damaging output, and used contested possessions, effective disposals, total clearances, goals and score involvements. Marcus Bontempelli was the dominant winner, followed by Christian Petrarca. For the final mid-forward spot, we shifted even more towards attack and selected clearances, goals, score involvements, inside 50s and metres gained. Christian Petrarca topped the category with a lower score than earlier, ahead of a tied Bontempelli and Rosie. As such, he was shifted down to the flank, and the next best complete midfielder, Lachie Neale, was added to the side. This is another position that has proved challenging to select in the past, lacking a reliable database that filters by pure wingers. As a result, we've taken the approach of selecting stats that represent areas where wingers excel, emphasising run and carry and the linking of play. Inside 50s, effective kicks, marks, bounces and metres gained gave us a clear winner in Errol Goulden, while Jordan Dawson's impressive kicking game snuck him into second. Two key defenders would anchor the backline, with the half-backs being players capable of both intercepting and rebounding. In a mirror of the forward line, the back pockets would then be a smaller defender and an all-rounder. Spoils, contested marks, intercept possessions, and 1%ers were all retained from last year, with the final stat being net defensive wins, which was simply contests won minus contests lost. More on this later. But on the field, Harris Andrews and Sam Collins led Jack Buckley and Darcy Moore to these posts. The back flanks were tasked with rebound 50s, effective disposals, intercept possessions, score launches and metres gained. Luke Ryan and Tom Stewart both dominated, with the pair both coming in under 10 ahead of the third place Jack Sinclair. For the back pocket, we focused on smaller defenders capable of shutting down a man and winning key defensive contests. Contested possessions, intercept possessions, ground ball gets, defensive half pressure acts, and net defensive wins gave us Dan Houston. Again, open to players classified as both defenders and key defenders, we used defensive half pressure acts, spoils, contested marks, intercept possessions, and net defensive wins. Harris Andrews won again, but with a higher score than previously, so Darcy Moore slotted into the back pocket, filling the last space on field. For the interchange, we retained the approach of selecting the best scoring player in each line that wasn't already selected for the team. That gave us Rowan Marshall as our second ruck with 16, Connor Rosie came from the midfield with 14 in the mid-forward role, Charlie Cameron with 13 for the small forward slot, and Jack Buckley with 17 as the third placed key defender. As is tradition, the captaincy would continue to go to the player judged to be the most statistically outstanding, as represented by the lowest score. This was Charlie Curnow, scoring 5 at full forward, backed up ably by Matt Rao with a 6 as the contested midfielder. There were again mixed results, with the system highlighting some players left out of the official side, who perhaps deserved more praise this season, and disadvantaging others who were rightly selected. We'll start with some glaring omissions. Going back through the stats, players like Nick Dacos, Jack Sinclair, and even Harry Sheasel were disadvantaged by their positional fluidity during the season, spending too much time in the midfield to rank highly in the more defensive stats, but possibly too much time in defence to rank highly for stats like clearances and contested possessions. Zach Butters and Josh Dacos were both surprisingly low in pretty much every statistical category and didn't make the side, highlighting the old stats aren't everything adage, as well as a reminder that this particular system tends to favour accumulators like Neil over impact players like Butters. Speaking of which, we've lamented the challenges of quantifying the statistical impact of defenders in the past. This year we switched from using defensive win percentage to net defensive wins, as we felt the former biased players who don't actually have many defensive contests but will win say 8 out of 10, versus a defender who's won 79 out of 100. Overall, this seemed to work well and gave us a fairly solid defensive unit, and one we were happy with compared to previous years. Tools also dominated the all-round options at both ends of the field, and the team is perhaps slightly unbalanced with 4 key backs, so in hindsight this may need to be tweaked to give smaller players more of a look in next year. That being said, few would argue Darcy Moore is undeserving of a blazer, and Kyle Langford had an outstanding season as a genuinely versatile forward. Breaking down the numbers, 13 players overlapped with the official All-Australian team. There were 15 who earned their first All-Australian by the Stats blazer, and just 2 players have now been included in all 3 teams we've put together, Harris Andrews and Christian Petrarca. So what did you make of this year's team? Did the All-Australian selectors get it right? And who were you glad to see included by the Stats?